Well, there we are, week 11. And I hope this week finds you well. I know that um, different people have different experiences of the week that we come in to do dev reviews, code reviews. But I really firmly believe in them. Oh, it won't move. And I hope you see the benefit as well. So remember I went over the requirements right after Dev Zero. I showed you last week my output from my Dev 1. So hopefully, if you have any questions, right, now is a perfect time to ask. Um, I am recording this video like I do normally a little bit early, right? So I'm actually in week 10 in the RL, in the real world. But I'm going to release the sign up sheet on Monday, March 21st at 10 o'clock. Okay, so I put this out on Discord just a little while ago, so you will know to look for it, hopefully. And just to show you what that sheet looks like, right there. Oh, I have to do it here? Wow. Okay, Google. So this sheet will look very similar to what it did last time, except I've actually extended a bit more days. And because you all, meaning CIT95, are running a week ahead of the 93. Hopefully, it'll give us a little more time, right? So, the hope is that you sign up for like I said, a review or an assistant session. Assistant sessions are fine. I love them, and I hope you come in for them. If you do, remember you still have to come in for a code review session. Look at the times. If this schedule doesn't meet your needs, then the sooner you get in touch with me, the more flexibility I will have. Just know that coming into code review, and it's basically a 2 week run, and actually kind of like 3 this time. But the sooner the better, because I have more flexibility to figure out my schedule. But I hope these dates do work for you, right? So 95, you can see where before your due date. Remember, if you come in before that, great. You can change anything you may have missed. Even if you come in for review, we find minor issues, you can fix them. Coming in for an assistance is just that. And it really helps when you're signing up here to make sure you tell me which one it is. And the other thing about this is that please don't, and I think this was completely by accident, but only put your name, only fill out these fields. Do not delete anything. We had somebody delete something last time, and I think I mentioned this, and it caused just a ton of pain. So I didn't take the time because I just honestly ran out, but I may do it before then to only allow certain edit permissions here, but I haven't. So please be careful. Okay, so that's the way the schedule goes. Remember, you gotta, when you come in to do your code review, part of what we're looking at is, does your code run? Does it meet the requirements? And then I ask you questions about that. And without coming in for a code review, your code would only be able to get 50% of the points. So just don't put yourself in that position. Here's the Zoom links. I don't think most people need the passcode because I think it's built into the link. And then you can just see how the dates flow. Okay. All right. And then I did add more for sure on Wednesday because I know there's a good group of you that like a little bit later. So when the 2 classes overlap is really where I know I may have to add dates. But again, the sooner you reach out to me, the better. Okay. Let me go back in here to week 11 just to see what I had. But in addition to that, so again, March 21st, I will post it out on Discord and I will post it here as well. But I want to say a word as we move into this week, week 11, because we are doing something I think really fun in week 11, which is you have 1 day before your Dev 1 is due. And this, I almost reversed this, but I decided that that would just be a little earlier. But if you wanted to reverse the schedule here, you could definitely reach out to me and do that. Meaning, if you wanted to do Dev 1 on the 21st and day 16th on the 24th, you could. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, because day 16, sorry, is an interesting thing because we delve into what we programmed in procedural code for the coffee machine. You actually are going to do for OOP. So you code this with the methods, the objects created that you then use to create your own objects. And I think it's a really fun project. But it's also not really what you have to do for Dev 1. So if you wanted to, right, I'd be open to reversing those. Just let me know ahead of time if that's what you want to do. Okay. So and I talk about this. Here's the other thing in the write-up, and this is a different topic. So that was the coffee machine. The other thing that Dr. Angela introduced this time was the idea of installing third-party packages. And I ended up doing a new video. I had one I had done before, but when you get to 148, I have some instruction for how to do virtual environments, and I also did a new video link. So updated video link, which was good for me because I had to like walk through it, and I ended up updating my instructions a little bit. Now this code is it's actually pretty table install, and it's kind of a fun little thing that she does with Pokemon characters. But again, this, if now, by the way, the reason I want to mention this here is if you're someone who wants to reverse, or if you're thinking about using third party libraries for your Dev 1, you definitely want to make sure you know how to set up the virtual environment, because it is required if you're submitting code with third party libraries. Okay. And I'll just show you quickly what it looks like on my machine. So here's why isn't my VS Code? I don't know why. Okay, so here is the directory I'd set up, and you notice it's grayed out. And again, this might be better to watch after, but it's all good, I hope. Here's the virtual environment directory, and in there I installed the pretty table. And the reason it's grayed out, because in the git ignore for my private repo, I added the directory name. And so whenever it sees this directory name, and by the way, you can name the directory whatever you want. I just find it easier. But in this case, because I place it there, it does not push this code to GitHub, which you wouldn't want it to do. But the reason you end up creating this is so that when I get your code and I go to install it and I create a virtual environment, this is what I use to install the third-party packages. Okay. So, and it was kind of interesting as I was playing around, I ended up showing how to do this outside of the editor. I noticed today, actually, that when I was playing around, just doing some stuff, getting ready for this video, that when I went into my command palette and I selected my interpreter, that my virtual environment was there still. It's kind of interesting because, and this is something you'll see me do in the video, where I ended up going out of VS Code to active, what we call source or run the virtual environment. So it was kind of an interesting thing. So I could, now that I've done it, do it inside, but I had to the first time do it outside. Anyway, I know that's probably confusing. I don't want to confuse it anymore, but I just want you to know that for that day 16, that will be true. And you're only doing it to do the Pokemon. You don't need it for the coffee maker. Okay, so let's just go back to, I don't think there was any other topic. So I thought what I would do as the last thing in this video is, let me just look at this real quick. Oh yeah, I talked about that. I talked about here. So for you all during this week, right, is your devs. So, what I've been talking about really since Dev 1 or Dev 0 is like thinking about your next one, right? So, and again, write your own code, right? If you get inspired, then make sure you give me a reference. And the idea is, if you do get inspired, it shouldn't be no more than a line or two at the most, okay? Now, you need to add major functionality and upgrades or additions, right, to whatever you had with Dev 0. Now, if you're doing a different topic, what that really means is you still need to meet the requirements of Dev 0. So if you want to know about that, ask me. And then I really questioned whether I was going to do this, but we've seen enough of this, how to validate input, so that you at least have maybe a while loop would make the most sense. I showed how I used a list in order to check the input, but you need to validate really any time you get user input. And then I talked about here implementing functions, really procedural code, or OOP. Now, again, for those of you new to programming, I don't recommend doing this, but for those of you that have some programming on experience on board and you want to go ahead and move into OOP, I think Dr. Angela does a great job of explaining why we end up moving beyond procedural code writing functions. But again, it's up to you. But every function or method needs to use doc strings. You need to implement return values, right? So this is really, I term this stackable functions, where you have one function that calls another function that returns a value, and that you use that value in your code, right? But we've been seeing return values and using them for most of this section. And I left this in there. It could have definitely been, but using const global and local variables. Okay, and then store. Now this is a key piece: is store the user process data into a nested dictionary or a list of a dictionary data. So as long as it's nested somehow, this is where I think in one of the weeks we had to learn together that covered this. So as long as it's in some kind of nested data structure, I'm good with that. Right. And then here's the other key is add some Python functionality commands we have not seen in this course, at least one example. Update your flowchart for your functionality. So you should have, I wasn't as strict on this on the first one, but you should have a flowchart of your program functionality. Include a README with a short updated description and a to-do list of what your task. Matter of fact, if I was you, I'd start with that to-do list. And then PEP 8 compliant as well, right? Use of third-party libraries. Last time I didn't recommend them. This time I say they're fine, right? Don't write any OS specific code. Remember, I'm your target audience. So, and if you do, and this is what I'd already mentioned before, and actually I need to update both of these links with the current updated content that I just created. Okay, so this video is the one you already had for last week. Hopefully that gives you an overview, but if you have any questions, please come and see me. Okay, I think that's it. Wow, where did I go? I speeded by real quick. All right, so week 11, crazy as it seems, we are after this and then spring break. Holy mac, it's going to feel like this class just zooms. Maybe it always has. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. What do I want in your reply? Yeah, so what I would want in your reply would be any questions about Dev 1 or anything about the virtual environment or anything about content that I've covered here that you would like to know more about. That would be awesome. Okay, have a great one. See you later.